have an idea of just how difficult it was, how much physical effort it took to cut in and how deep you were going and how much tolerance this animal was showing.
Cutting around the whale. This is an amazing story. I mean, you would never think an animal would allow you to do such a thing. The crab trap ropes, they're called blue steel for a reason. They're very strong, Kevlar lined, Spectra lined ropes. It takes a very sharp knife to cut them. I had just sharpened my knife the weekend prior, my dive knife the weekend prior. I just came back from a trip where it needed to be cleaned and sharpened, so it was super sharp when I started on this. The ropes, each individual rope was probably about as thick as your finger around, and there were several of them tied into knots to the point where there'd be 15 ropes all twisted into one giant rope. Some of the individual ropes went into the blubber 2-3 inches deep. It amazed me when I went down. One of the last major cuts I did was releasing the tail. It was one of the last cuts we did, and there was literally probably a bunch, about 15 ropes, all tied, all wound up together, wrapped around the very tail. I tried sawing through it. I couldn't. I tried cutting one individual rope at a time. Sometimes I could. Sometimes it just wouldn't work because they were so tight. There were so many of them you couldn't actually just cut one. What ended up happening was I went on the bottom side of the whale and I put my hand on the whale and I told the whale, okay, this is going to hurt. And the way I could actually get some slack was actually I put my knife next to the whale, and with my other hand I jabbed it into the whale, cut it into the whale probably 3 inches, 4 inches deep into the blubber at the very tail, and then sawing backwards towards me. That's the only way, and having a foot on the whale tail to get my strength enough where I could pull the rope and cut it at the same time.
You're using the whale's own body as leverage to cut through it.
It was like standing against a wall.
And this whole time the whale is holding still.
Yeah, the whale flinched one time when I put the knife in at its deepest point. I mean, I was pretty much hammering my knife into the whale. It flinched once. I swam away for a second, and then I came back to my knife and started again and pushed it down and started sawing. But I felt bad doing it, but I knew I had to do it.
And this is towards the end. This is one of the last.
It's one of the last cuts. Yeah.
So the whale, well, you made some good progress in freeing it. So maybe, any sense that the whale was getting the picture, that you were for sure there to help, or is that all speculation?
I believe the whale started to realize we were helping. It was being, as cooperative as you can be. It was staying still. It wasn't moving about. At this, about halfway into to the rescue, its pectoral fins were free, so it was able to move them about, but it didn't. The whale was so cooperative. One of the other guys was pulling rope out of the mouth. So the whale would open its mouth. The guy would put his hand up inside of it and pull pieces of rope out of the baleen one by one.
Then the mouth would close again.
And then the mouth would close again, and the guy would, open the mouth slowly and pull some more rope out of the baleen, and it would slowly close again. But the four divers in the water, 2 on scuba, myself on scuba, and Tim. 2 of the guys were free diving because it's just the total. There's still ropes floating everywhere. We didn't want to get having scuba gear in a tank. It's just one more thing to get caught on. These guys, everybody was, we were like ants crawling over a carcass. We were all over the animal, on its back, or on its fins, putting our weight, our feet on it to pull the ropes out of the blubber. We were literally crawling all over this whale. It wasn't moving. It didn't scare me at all. It was a unique situation.
And we talked about when you got the sense that the whale stopped being scared. At what point did you stop being scared?
The whale stopped. I think stopped getting scared um, when it knew. When we were real close to it, right at its eye, and we didn't harm it. I think at that point, that's when it really relaxed and really calmed down. Um, as soon as I saw that eye, just looking back at me, and knowing that there was a brain behind there because I could see it moving, watching me, and there was definitely a connection there. Definitely, when you look into a whale's eye, there's something very cool going on. I wouldn't quite say it's life changing, but it's definitely something you would never forget.
Can you compare it to any other animal, or is it different than any other animal you've ever looked at?
The whale's eye was definitely different. I've been fortunate enough to dive with a few whales now. Um, None that I had, that feeling of really having a sense that it was looking at me. I've seen whales' eyes. I don't know if they're looking back. This whale was definitely looking back. Making eye contact with your favorite person, you definitely feel something. You and that person might not feel the same emotions, but it was definitely one of the best days of my life. Having eye contact with a whale.
And that wasn't the end of it. After it was freed, even more happened.
Oh yeah. One of the last cuts I did was cutting the ropes free at the tail, and I'll never forget it because as soon as I cut that last rope, looking down, I see all the crab pots just falling into the abyss, and it was a really great feeling. I was overfilled with joy. Swam up to the surface as fast as I can from 30 feet and just screamed, "Woohoo!" It's free. It's free. At that point, we had one rope around the pectoral fin still, and one rope in the mouth. One of the guys got the rope off the pectoral fin, and one of the guys tied a rope into a knot at the mouth where we could stand on the whale and pull. Two of us. We got that rope out of its mouth, and we were high-fiving. It was a great experience because we knew we accomplished what we couldn't. No one believed we could. Even ourselves, we didn't believe it. We accomplished it, and we're high-fiving and whooping it up, and the whale at that point, started moving around. Started swimming, swimming in circles, swimming in figure eights around us, and swimming right next to us, rubbing us, and then it dove down. And I was going, okay, well, I was looking down in the water. Where's the whale? Where'd it go? And looking down the water, next thing I know, I have this whale coming right up at me. And it was like a small moving bus coming at me, if you could describe it any other way, or Mack truck, because it's even scarier. And here it comes, this whale directly from below me, coming up, real close. And I'm just thinking, like, here we go. I just saved you, and you're going to run me over. And it stopped. It literally stopped 6 inches away from my chest, and then nudged me forward, like your household dog does when he wants to be petted, or your cat, puts your hand, puts his head underneath your hand so you can pet him. It was that kind of experience. It just rubbed up against my chest and nudged me back, and then came up and nudged me again, and then nudged me again, and then went to the next diver. Actually, it nudged me and then came up to me. It swam up next to me where it turned on its side and put its eye right next to me and stopped and looked. And I started petting her again, and then she slowly moved, and she went to the next guy and pushed him around. And then to the next guy and pushed him around. And the whale came up and looked at each individual person over and over again. We each had, whale 11, 4 times, 5 times each. And then the whale went to the Zodiac, came up so close to the Zodiac where people could touch him. Went to the big boat, swam around the big boat, came back to us, rubbed up against us again. So it was definitely a feeling of affection, if you could call it anything else. But that's what makes this such an awesome day.
And it sounds like it was recognizing each of you as individuals. It made sure that each of you got the same number of turns of thinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure if everybody got the same equal number of turns, but everybody was definitely thanked. Everybody felt thanked. Everybody in the water felt that this was a way that it was acknowledging us. I don't know if it was a thankful, but it was acknowledging us. Um, and at that point, you don't want to get a wild animal used to human beings because we're just usually bad. So I told the guys, let's go. We swam back to the big boat, mounted up, headed out, loaded up, started moving, and the whale followed us. And then we got going fast enough where it just started going the other way. So, I mean, it didn't leave us. We left it. So,
When you made that final cut on the tail, and you're basically watching what, 400-500 pounds worth of entrapment finally falling away.
I'd say the amount of gear that was on the tail, probably between a dozen and 20 crab traps, weighed, 3,000, 4,000 pounds. This is what it was actually. It was the crab traps that were on the tail, which basically was the anchor holding this thing, drowning this animal. It was a 3,000 pound anchor attached to its tail. 500 pounds, a whale could easily kick that moving around, but you start adding 150 pound trap, a dozen traps, that's 1,000 pounds. 20 is quite a amount of weight.
So it's fighting against this weight to keep coming to the surface to breathe before it sinks to its doom.
Yeah. This the whale, when we found it, was drowning. When we first got there, one of the first things I noticed was that the whale was not breathing like a whale.
Yeah, there's so many directions I wanted to go with that. Let's go back to the 3,000 pounds that fell off of it. I found it interesting that so there's still one or two ropes on it, one around the pectoral and one around the mouth, and yet it's freed of all this weight, but it didn't just rush off. It's letting you finish the job almost. I mean, how would you describe that?
Once I got done with the tail and I came up and started yelling that we freed it, I assumed that all ropes were gone. We had those two small ropes, one out of the mouth and the pectoral fin, but by no means was it stopping this whale from swimming off. It allowed us to continue our job of completely cleaning it off. I don't know how a whale feels. I'm assuming it feels just like we do. If I know that there's a piece of hair on me, I want it off. I just get it off. The whale knew that once we got all the pieces off, that it was free. I never said, "Okay, well, you're free. You can go." It sensed that it was free, that there was no more entanglements, no more ropes on it, and swam off.
Naysayers probably argue the animal's gentleness to it just being exhausted, like it had no choice, like it couldn't move. But this sounded very clearly as though it held still right until you completed the job.
Yeah. A lot of people say, researchers come to me in the past several years and going that the whale was just tired. It didn't have any strength to move on while we were cleaning it. It was not allowing us to clean it. It was just fatigued. I say nay. People have told me that the whale was coming up to us just because it was tired and didn't know where it was. I don't believe that. It was doing figure eights. It could go both left and right and straight, and it could go down. It was able to move all different directions, but chose to come to each individual person. The whale went to each individual person. The boat, it's not like it went to something else floating in the water. It didn't go to the crab pot buoys that we were around to thank them. It went to each person. It acknowledged each person.